Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets and how to increase your market business success. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week we're chatting about preparing contingency plans for when your farmers market experiences extreme environmental challenges. Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers, and I'm a longtime Farmers Market Manager, a Vendor 101 co-teacher, and education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active Farmers Market Manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, and the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer and marketing director for Farmers Market Pros.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by Campbell Risk Management, providing quick online quotes and certificates of insurance for farmers market vendors and operators nationwide. Protect your business and your market with affordable liability insurance. Find more information by clicking the Campbell Risk Management logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Welcome back to Tent Talk. So today on our show, we're talking inclement weather and other environmental issues that affect farmers market operations. Speaking of Campbell Risk Insurance.
I know, I thought that was oddly appropriate.
Yes. Yes. It's nice when our sponsors kind of go hand in hand with our topic at hand here. So
Yes.
I don't think Campbell Risk will be happy to hear us connecting them with farmers market inclement weather issues.
Hey, they're in the business of helping people when things go awry, right?
Yeah. I think
That's their business.
they know.
They know what's
know.
up.
They know.
They know what happens.
Yeah. So, disclaimer that we live in San Diego and have better than average weather pretty much all the time. So
true.
sometimes it's,
We are better off than a lot of places.
we are better
There's
off
no
in a lot
doubt.
of places. But yeah, as the Farmers Market Pros, I feel like we talk to a lot of people around the country. We visited a lot of markets and know that weather is a big issue during different times of
We've dealt
the
with
year.
some storms
We've
and
dealt with
rain
some
and things, just not as often as some people do.
And
Yeah,
some
we-
fires
And
in
fires.
the
We've
area.
had some
Fires,
serious
yeah.
fires a few years ago. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But I think
Knockwood.
because we are babies when it comes to weather, maybe we are the right people to talk about it because a lot of our shoppers, if there's a cloud in the sky, they're like, are you going to be open? And you have to remind them, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, or vendors. It's going to rain. It's not going to rain. There's a 10% chance, and it's probably just going to be a light drizzle. Do you remember when Maddie came to work for us, and she had worked at markets in the Seattle area?
Yes.
And the phone was ringing off the hook one Tuesday afternoon because there was a forecast of rain. Not because there was rain, but because there was a forecast that there might be rain. She's like, what is going on here? Bridget says, well, what do you do? What did you do in Seattle when it rains? And she's like, what? What do you mean? Like, how
It rains all the time.
If you changed things in Seattle when it rained, you would have no life at all.
The markets
That's true.
there would not be farmers markets in Seattle if they
Or
all had to
anything.
close for rain or the thought of rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, people get a little
We're a little spoiled here.
spoiled. That's
Yeah.
fine.
But we do have a strong philosophy about being open, rain or shine, with the caveat that we don't mean when it's unsafe.
Yeah.
But we do think it's important to be open if you can be open.
Yeah.
So,
Even if the rain is heavy, we'll get into it in the episode, but it's, unless it's really unsafe winds and things that you could get hurt, it's important to be open because getting wet does not mean that you don't need groceries. And that's kind of
Yeah.
how we explain it to the vendors. Being wet does not mean that people don't need to also eat dinner that night. You know what I'm saying? So if
as
you're
we
just going to
always say in
Yeah.
every newsletter, whenever rain forecasters get in our way, whether or not, you still got to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, that pun has really explained it all.
Pretty much gets
And
there.
the
Everyone.
reason behind that is too, and we say this all the time, but our competition is not other farmers markets or other outdoor events. Our competition are supermarkets, and no matter what, supermarkets are open unless there were a freak power outage or some sort of
Snowstorm
extreme
or something.
situation.
Yeah.
But grocery stores are always open. So we need to remind people that they can count on the farmers market no matter how good or bad the weather is, that they will be there, those vendors will be selling food, and it's going to be better quality than the grocery store.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to send people to a supermarket because it's raining out and you've decided not to show up. If they get to a supermarket, they may find out it's easier to park there.
Yeah, exactly. One central register, all the things that are more convenient at a grocery store might start appealing to your customers who have been regularly shopping outdoors at your farmer's market. And if they think that you're going to all of a sudden not show up for the day because of whatever weather, that's not going to be, that doesn't fit a lot of people's busy schedules, and they need to know what's going to be open and when.
Yeah, so we need to be there.
consistent.
And we've found over the years that if you're really faithful to being there no matter what, your shoppers will be too. They'll show up when it's raining. They'll shop. You may lose the selfie snapping samplers. But the actual grocery shoppers will show up because they've got a craving for those products that they've got on their list that they get every week at the market. And they'll come if they can trust you to be there.
Yeah.
So you have to
Yeah.
maintain that trust. And last but by certainly no means least, folks have already acted. So if you get a weather forecast a few hours before your market, those farmers have already pulled crops out of the ground. They can't put them
Yeah.
back in.
Your
They're
bakers have already baked their croissant in the middle of the night.
That's
so they
right.
can't unbake that.
Yeah.
You know?
And staff members have already been staffed. A lot of our vendors, they have people working for them. And you can't just tell somebody like, no, it's going to rain, so you don't get to work tomorrow.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's a lot at risk when you close a market, when you decide not to open, when you close in the middle of a market because of rain or lightning or any of the things where farmers market managers have to make those tough decisions. There's a lot riding on each side of those
Exactly. So
decisions.
it's not an easy decision like, if there's a forecast of rain, we'll close. It's never that simple. And also, I don't know why the weather has become this big, thing that the media wants to get everyone excited about.
Well, clickbait is everywhere.
It's just like the 24-hour weather cycle. Even when even in sunny San Diego, it's like the forecasters just need something to do. So the prediction for foul weather is out of control. And I know as other farmers market people, listening, you guys get it, that you will get a forecast for a type of weather, and that weather will absolutely not even blow through. It will not even appear in the sky. So there's been so many days where it's been saying 90% of rain all day.
Storm of the century.
Storm of the century. Get your sandbags and pack your bags, get ready to go. And then it literally will not even rain. It will not even sprinkle. And so
You would
it's very
think with all
perplexing.
these very clever meteorological
Yeah.
technologies that we've developed that we should be able to predict these things. So what?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
isn't this working? I want that job.
Yes.
That being said, global warming and climate change is a very, very real
That's true.
thing. And nobody knows that better than farmers, right?
Yeah.
So farmers markets, this has always been an issue. This is always, weather has always been something that as market managers, farmers market vendors, and farmers deal with. We're outside. And this is something that likely will become even a more pressing issue in years to come.
Yeah.
So for you farmers market managers, this is something that, hopefully in our conversation today, you'll start thinking about, are these things that I can put into a plan or kind of, a checklist of if it checks these boxes, these are the times I need to cancel, and kind of make up a process or procedure to help you make these decisions, because probably and unfortunately in the coming years, this is just going to get harder, and we're going to see, even in sunny San Diego, fire season has gotten longer, the days have gotten hotter, the storms that we do have are, a bit more extreme than they have been. So all of this is this problem isn't going away, and luckily, we do work with farmers, and so they know the struggles, and even this last season we had a lot of farmers that were impacted by heavy rains or earlier hotter days or fire season. So we're in good company. They know what we're talking about.
We're all outdoor people. So it's
Yeah.
like we're living our lives outside, and no one more than farmers, but even operating businesses outside, we are paying attention to all of that. And we've kind of seen it shift, and heavy rains, and then drought, and then heat, and then, freezing temperatures at odd times of year. So that kind of stuff. And we know if that's happening here in San Diego and San Diego County, that's definitely happening.
Well, it's
other
gotten much,
places.
much worse.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
mean,
exactly.
Seattle and Portland have had record heat. The
intensity
recently,
of it.
The Alabama coast states have been getting really bad storms, rainstorms, hurricane level winds and things. So, yeah, it's happening all over, and it's definitely more extreme.
Yeah, so being in charge of an outdoor business is something that you really need to make a plan for and not just say, oh, I'll just make that call when it happens, which is kind of what we've said before. Like, it doesn't, it's not too bad too many times. And
yeah, you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah, you'll know when you see it. We'll just figure it out. It's good to have that backup plan and to make sure that everyone on your team and any other agencies that you need to report to or that you are working with are also on that same page so that you are not stuck in a situation where the weather is bad or there's a fire getting close and you're having to make those kind of calls, because making those calls under so much pressure, you might not make the best call. Whereas if you think about it ahead of time, you can kind of lay out a plan of action.
And there's so much pressure there
Yeah.
on farmers market managers. So we're not meteorologists and we're not risk management experts, although we are a little bit.
Are we a little bit of everything?
In practice. In practice.
Yeah.
Our job is weird.
Yeah.
We know that. So we're covering all those things.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of pressure for
Yeah.
somebody that was hired to be a farmer's market manager
Yeah.
and, help people set up tents and collect rent and do the social media.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now we're having to make these really life and death kind of decisions.
Yeah.
So knowing that there's a lot on the table on both sides. So when you decide to close a market because the weather's kicking up, you're maybe having a serious effect on somebody's livelihood who needs those sales from their farm produce or their baked goods to support their families.
Yeah.
So that's not a casual decision. At the same time, do you want to have your farmers and bakers and staff and customers out there if all of a sudden you're going to get lightning strikes? So, I mean, this is not a little thing. Mm-hmm. It's a ton of pressure.
Yeah. But we have some tips for, maybe those situations where you don't pull the plug or cancel the market. So we just have some simple things that you can do on days that maybe the weather is a bit uncomfortable or your vendors don't really want to show up, but ways to, kind of the show must go on type of things and how you can kind of keep everything moving, keep your market functioning, keep people happy without calling it a day.
Yeah, I think that's good. You should have two lists: uncomfortable weather and unsafe weather.
Yes.
So we're we're dealing with the uncomfortable weather.
Yeah, let's talk about the uncomfortable and then a little bit about how you try to determine when you've crossed that line.
Yeah.
But so on extremely hot days.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that happening. Vancouver, BC, Canada, they had people pass away. I mean, it's been terrible with the heat. And then high levels of heat in lots of other areas too. So if you have not crossed that line into truly unsafe, what are some of the things that we want to pay attention to when things are really hot?
Yeah, definitely remind people to hydrate. It seems like such a simple thing, but I mean, even in like hiking groups that I'm a part of, it's like we all have to remind each other, like, on warm days, hydrate. It can really make the difference between functioning and not functioning in that weather. So, maybe in your email newsletter or to tell your shoppers or in an advisory to tell your vendors like the day before, hey, start hydrating now the day before. Make sure that you have electrolytes. Make sure that you have enough water and enough cool water to get you through your 8-9 hour day out at the farmer's market from open to close or from setup to breakdown. So really staying hydrating, it can make all of the difference. That could be the only thing you need to do just to have a more comfortable day.
Some markets provide water if that's within means, having a staff member filling up coolers and place them around your farmer's market. If you have a sponsor for that week, maybe they want to provide water, or if there's a neighboring business that wants to provide water, just...
It could be a hero.
Yeah, having those stations open would be, so helpful. Or if you have like a wasteless dining program or something like that where you can put up coolers for people to fill up their water bottles, that's a really great way to remind everybody to keep hydrating.
Yeah, and if you do have something like that, if you can make that work at your market, I know I've seen them at a few different markets around the country, you can also be selling your market branded water bottle, and then they're filling it up, and then they're getting a good feeling looking at your market branding while they're hydrating on a hot day. So it's it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, or also putting in your email newsletter to say like, hey, it's going to be hot tomorrow. Here's some vendors that sell juice or sell lemonade. Obviously there's ways to integrate it with your vendors and promoting the vendors that are selling frosty beverages at your market.
Yeah, we always use it as an opportunity in the email newsletter to highlight who's selling watermelon, how to make like a refreshing cucumber, lemon water at home and put some recipes in there, or how to take your, fruit and put it in ice cube trays at home once you get it home from the market. So it could be a good like marketing tool, like use the weather if it's, obviously if it's catastrophic weather, you don't want to be making light recipe jokes about it. But if it's just going to be a hot day, take that time, or a cold day, and, put out those soup recipes, or highlight your bone broth guy or something like that. So use the weather as a marketing tool. If it's just, summertime is warm, here's some things to keep you cool. Try to integrate that. Don't pretend like it doesn't exist. Like, you don't want to not mention it, because some people aren't used to shopping outside.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that they're coming prepared, because then they'll stay longer, they'll shop more, they'll have a better feeling when they leave the market. If they're dehydrated and exhausted and feeling terrible when they leave your market, guess what? They're going to have a bad feeling about your market from then on.
And I would say probably the only real medical issues we've had at the market are people having heat stroke.
Yeah.
And it seems like 2 or 3 times a season we're having to call EMTs out to deal with somebody that's just gotten overheated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tourists.
Watch out for your staff, too.
Yeah.
Your staff is walking around that market all day. Make sure they stay hydrated. We used to love it when Bridget showed up at the market with her Camelback on.
That's right. I got my backpack water cooler. Everyone would be asking me what flavor margarita is in my backpack, and I said, none of that on a hot day, because that'll dehydrate you.
Yeah.
So just, as nerdy as you might look, stay hydrated.
Yeah.
That's right.
And simple things like making sure that people are wearing like hats or getting shade.
Yeah.
We recently just got our hat vendor back at the market, which is perfect just in time for summer. So encouraging people to protect their skin. That does really impact if you're out and about, even if you have a bunch of water. If you're just like getting sunburnt all day, then it's not going to make you feel well.
Yeah, we have a nice natural sunscreen vendor at our market, so he always does well. We always try to point people that direction, because if you show up at the market without sunscreen, how long are you going to walk around and shop if you're really feeling like the sun, you're not protected from the sun? So give people pointers to purchase things from your vendors at the market, and so that will help them stay and shop and have a better day at the market.
Yeah.
So the Phoenix downtown market, they have misters in their aisles.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to love that.
Yeah.
I love
that.
it. How else are you going to shop there? And I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, so I can say that. But it is mighty hot. I know they're open from like 8 to 11 or something.
During the summer.
Yeah, real early morning.
That's smart.
7
kind
to
of
11.
shifting their hours.
Yeah, but they have a nice shaded area. It's like a covered parking lot, and with the misters, they make it as comfortable as possible. And, people in Phoenix, they're partly immune to the
lizards.
high heat. Yeah, exactly. So they can go out and shop. But I feel like the misters probably make a really big impact on that.
Yeah, and one of our vendors last summer, Mickledge Honey, they had this like really cool mister setup that it was like connected to this little just like water pump
like a
thing.
jug water,
It was like a jug of water, and then they set it over their canopy, and it just like misted out all day. It seemed like a really simple setup. I don't know if it was like battery powered or what, but it was like a very small thing. So
And guess which booth all the customers wanted to come check out.
It was
so
very
there you go.
smart.
It's good for sales. And they happened to be right next to our info booth. So that was nice. We got that benefit when the wind blew our way. But if someone has a portable mister at your market, maybe move them next to your info booth.
or
So you can get the
vendors
benefit.
can put little battery operated fans in their booth.
Yeah, I've seen a few people do that.
Yeah.
Our farmers are
That's
pretty
smart.
clever about that.
Yeah.
You'll look behind their tables, and they have like a bucket filled with cold water with a little pump, and a fan, and they're just staying cool. They know what to do. They're used to working outside when the weather's not so pleasant. So take a look at what they're doing.
Yeah.
For your staff in the booth, or if there's something you can set up for your shoppers. Just trying to make it comfortable. Just let them know that we know it's warm, and this is how we can take care of each other.
Yeah. Another really helpful thing that doesn't seem like it would make a big difference, but I find it helps on hot days, is if you have a little cushion to stand on. I mean, our market is on like asphalt part of it because it's in the street. And that can get really, really hot during the day. So if you just stand, you can even put a piece of cardboard down or one of those like cushy, standing mats that they have.
Yeah.
That tends to help too. Also on cold days too, if the ground is really, really cold or icy, that tends to just keep you above ground and
It's like a camping tip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for
look
sure.
look at camping tips. I mean, those are all relevant to us. This is a good
Exactly.
opportunity to remind people not to bring pets to the market.
Yes.
Without going down that rabbit hole on pets, so to speak. That rabbit. You don't want to send a dog down a rabbit hole. But
And don't bring your rabbits to the market.
don't bring rabbits to the market. But this is a an important time to remind people again, for no other reason than just to be kind to those doggies, that they shouldn't bring their dogs to the market, especially if you're on a street. I know there's some markets and parks, but we're on an actual city street, and a lot of markets are. And there's some crazy multiplier in terms of if the temperature outside is this, the actual pavement temperature is...
It's like that plus 100
is a
or
lot.
something. Yeah, it's crazy.
And so those poor dogs will pause.
Oh, I see them
Yeah.
sometimes walking, like they're on hot coals, and like it'll blister their feet. They get really dehydrated, and by the time the dogs are panting and looking for water, it's too, like, not too late, but they're already
They're in bad
dehydrated.
shape.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, leave the pups at home.
leave those pups at
Yeah.
home.
That's right.
Do your
Be
grocery
nice.
shopping, then go home.
Go home to your
That's right.
pups.
Great. So
Exactly.
when this is a good question, like when to cancel or how do you make that decision on a hot day?
Yeah, we've never canceled for heat, and we've had
Yeah.
some hot days. Not as hot as some of those days they've been seeing in the Northwest this week or that they see in Phoenix on a regular basis. I will say it's partly about whether your population is used to dealing with that kind of heat.
That's a good
Because I
point.
think the folks from Arizona are kind of not laughing, obviously, because there's like some serious health issues going on, but they're baffled, maybe, is a better word, by the severity of what's happening in the Pacific Northwest because of heat that is at temperatures that are entirely typical in the desert Southwest.
Like, for instance, it's like 118 in Phoenix today, and everyone's just kind of going about their business.
Right.
Because they just live there.
Right.
But I will say,
but
like...
they have air conditioning
They have a
in
reprieve.
place. They know how to operate in heat.
They drive everywhere.
They probably have like a cool towel in there. I used to keep a towel in my refrigerator to put on my kid's car seat before I got in the car. So like all those things that you just do when you live in Phoenix because it's blazing hot half the year. People that live in an area that doesn't usually get that hot, they don't have those tools at their disposal.
Yeah.
Or like us here in San Diego, like I do have air conditioning in my house, but I never turn it on because my windows aren't even like properly sealed, and it's like it just blows out through the cracks
And most
under
of us
my
here
door.
don't have AC.
Exactly. Yeah, or there's not AC here, so
There is a different effect, too, in different areas because I know that if the humidity is too high, when the temperature is high, then you can't sweat it off.
Exactly.
So that
Phoenix is a
that
dry
whole thing
heat.
about a dry heat in Phoenix, even though it's 122,
Yeah.
is easier to take than higher humidity. But canceling for heat is a tough call. I have seen some markets around the country doing that
I
this
think
last
Portland
few
State
weeks.
just did a couple weeks ago when it was that record, like 115 day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just wanted it to be safe. And that's one of the things, Justine, when you were saying that you kind of want to develop some guidelines. So
Yeah.
whether it's in conjunction with, if you're a market that's owned by a municipal agency, the city is probably going to want to have some input in terms of risk management on when you draw those lines. If you're a private business that's operating a market, you just need to kind of think through it, study a little bit, look at what the health experts are saying, and maybe in advance have a line that you cross that you say, when it reaches 115, we're going to close it down. So then the trickier thing gets to be, do you open the market earlier in the morning and stay open until it hits 115 and then close, so that people do get a chance to do their basic shopping and so that the farmers can move that product that's going to die in the field otherwise. So,
so that is an option, is like shift, like do you need to shift your hours
and I've seen some people doing that.
or
I've
shorten
seen,
their hours?
Yeah, I've seen around the country a number of markets that typically run, say, 9 to 1 this time of year, saying, okay, we're going to be open from 7 to 10 and then we're out.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad solution. The trick to that, of course, is letting your shoppers know that you've made that change. So you need to have a strong communication system in place. You need to really be pumping that social media, getting it out in your email newsletters, giving them as much notice as possible. That's where it gets tricky. You're never sure what it's going to be tomorrow in terms of the weather. But trying to make those calls early enough that you can let your shoppers know is important.
Yeah. And also one thing that I think that we are always learning a lesson of, making sure you have the most updated contact information for your vendors as well, and trying to get, sometimes even like you want to get the staff that is hired by a vendor, right? So you can tell everybody as soon as possible, because the last thing you want are people showing up to work or showing up with product and you've canceled the market.
They don't know. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a good time to kind of maybe listening to some of our past episodes about marketing and getting those email lists, because you want to be able to connect with your shoppers and have a good avenue to tell your shoppers what the status is. Like, what is the status of your business? If you have a good social media following, make sure you just post it and say, hey, we know this weather's coming up. We may change our hours. We will post it here.
Yeah, keep watching.
Yeah, keep watching this. Like, tell your shoppers where to look because, there's Google Business, there's your website, there's Yelp, there's things that you can and can't control on the internet. So you need to tell your shoppers where exactly the most accurate and up-to-date information is going to be posted by you, the market manager. And the vendors need to know that, and the shoppers need to know that. So,
and then work with your local community groups. A lot of times they'll help as well. So we, for instance, work with business improvement districts. They're really good about, if we let them know, they use the kind of email lists that go out to the residents in that area or to the business owners in that area that can spread the word for you and help share your posts on social and tell their customers or tell their condo community residents what's happening near them.
Yeah, for sure.
And remind your vendors, too, if you do decide to cancel in an extreme situation, tell your vendors, please post this on your social media. Please put this out to your regulars. Tell the people that are planning on coming to buy your carrots this weekend or coming to buy your pesto. Email them, contact them, tell them, hey, here's where you can find me another day. Or, you might be able to wrangle a last minute drop off of the product, and it's a way to kind of salvage some of those sales that you might be missing out on.
On that note too, sometimes we have vendors that will post, I'm thinking one farmer in particular, that if it's going to rain and maybe they're not going to come to the market or their social media person isn't up to date on the regulations, they make a huge post to their huge following that the market is canceled for rain.
No.
I've had many a conversation with them about this. I don't know if they do it anymore, but they did. Last year, a couple of times when we had some storms coming up. One time they opted not to come to the market even though it was going to be open, and they posted that it was canceled, meaning that they canceled the reservation at the market, so they weren't going to be there. But the whole market was going to be open, and I had to message them, like, take that down right now. So just be clear with your vendors and say, hey, even if you are going to call out of the market, which we'll get to in a minute about calling out or not, make sure you're not telling your customers that our market is closed, because that the integrity of our market and the trust that we're building with our shoppers is really important. And when vendors start saying that markets are canceled and things like that, they get confused. Shoppers get confused with who's in charge of things and who can cancel things. So make that kind of protocol clear with your farmers and vendors.
That's good.
And messaging should be the same.
Yeah. And we should talk about, I feel like usually when it's like sunny outside, even if it's extremely hot, people are kind of more inclined to go to the farmer's market because it's a beautiful day. It's usually summertime that, berries are in season and people want to get all those tasty summertime treats. Usually it tends to be when it looks gloomy or rainy or it's really, really cold or it's snowing or sleeting, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Those are the days that people, think like, oh, we need to cancel. We need to, because nobody's going to show up to the market, or vendors get as we call it, the rain flu.
We call it the rain flu.
They don't want to, drag all their stuff out because it is a pain in the butt to pop a tent when it's raining and then put everything away wet.
Conveniently, their grandmother has died for the 8th time. Whenever it rains, they can't come to the market. There was someone in our Farmers Market Pros community group that posted a while back about how she was going to get all of her vendors like a happy summer present as a Fix-A-Flat. A can of Fix-A-Flat, because if you get the rain flu and your tire pops, because somehow everyone gets a flat tire when they're driving in the rain or the snow, bizarre. Or on a hot day, your tires are just exploding. Can you believe it? So she's like, here's a Fix-A-Flat so you can still make it to the market.
There you go.
I thought that was brilliant.
Love
funny way to approach it, because you have to kind of get real with your vendors and say, hey, I understand it's uncomfy. Like, we're also out here working. It's uncomfortable for us. But we're here. There's shoppers here. I've never had a market where, 0 shoppers have showed up because of whatever weather.
Yeah.
Shoppers come.
We've actually closed I think we've closed 3 markets in the last 13 years. And I know that at least one, it was because tents were flying out. It had suddenly changed from rain to a really windy kind of storm.
It was like microbursts of wind, and table legs were snapping.
Yeah.
I'll never remember a table with oranges on it. The legs collapsed, and all of a sudden the other gal that was working with me, we turned around, and there was just a river of oranges coming down the street.
It's like a plague from the Bible.
Yes, for sure. It really was. And I was like, it might be time to call this. Everyone's running out just picking up oranges and putting them in our shirt. So
yeah,
we
so
did
it
end up
happens.
closing that one, but we were open for 2 hours. And
We
then
were
it
open for 2
closed.
hours, and the smart vendors had
Yes.
gotten the word out to their shoppers that, you know what, we're not sure we're going to make it through the day, because we had told them at the beginning, if it gets too bad, we're going to take it down. And they had emailed and texted people
Yeah.
and posted on their social, and we had one vendor, I think it was the meat vendor, that did a record day that day
Oh, no,
because
I
they
was gonna
crunched
say-
everything into the first 2
Yeah.
hours.
Shout
before
out
we
to Dale
closed.
Ranch, who has a very long they have a very nice text messaging system. And Scott was there, and he text messages all his customers and said, "Hey, my truck is here. Pull up in the parking lot behind the market and pick up your orders, or I'll sell. Tell me what you want. I'll get it ready for you. Pull up." And I'll put it in your car for you because it's raining cats and dogs, and we might close soon.
But I think that's
and
what
he
brought
did
it to
so
mind.
many sales.
Yeah, what brought that to mind is saying that you've never seen a day when there's no shoppers there.
Yeah.
That was such a crazy day. There were
Yeah.
rivers of rain in the street. Things were blowing around, and there were still shoppers walking through the market going, "You're closing?
Yeah.
Why? I just
Oh,
got
yeah.
here."
There was one of our regular shoppers was like, "Come on." She's like, "Buck up." We're like literally
Yeah.
table legs are snapping. She's like, "It's fine." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Where are you from?" I want to know.
So this is just a good reminder to make sure that, your vendors do have all the things that you tell them that they're supposed to have, like tent weights.
Tent weights.
That's a big one.
Nice.
If anything is, usually the reason why rain at a market is dangerous is not because of the actual rain, it's because of the wind.
wind,
And the
yeah.
tents blow up in the air, so make sure they have those tent weights. That's really important. Also, you might tell your vendors, have an alternate rain setup. Like maybe instead of
Yeah.
having two tables that are kind of right up against the edge of the tent, have one table, pull it inside the tent so people can come inside your tent. It will keep them out of the rain for a moment. They can purchase their items and leave. Some vendors do sell things that if it got wet, that it would get damaged. So maybe they need to kind of set up differently, or they have some stuff in their truck that they pull out when they need it, like freshly baked bread might be difficult if it's a super rainy day, or we have a
Even
group.
some packaging,
Yeah.
we've encouraged people, and we always, there's one guy that says, "Oh, look, it's going to ruin all my packaging," and the person in the booth next to him is like, "Oh, look, I use these handy plastic tubs to keep my
Yeah.
product in."
It's just innovation, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay. But people say my product is going to get ruined, and it's like, well, okay, we work outside. Like, we all have to have contingency plans. Make a plan so that your product does not get ruined.
Yeah.
Like, let's
Change your
think about
display,
it. Yeah.
change how you
Even
shape
our
things.
our greeting card guy shows up in the rain. So if
Yeah.
greeting card guy can show up in the rain, you can show up in the rain.
I'm sure
too.
he has a card for a rainy day.
I'm sure he does too. Sorry, it's a rainy day. We should have him make a sorry you got the rain flu, and we can mail it to all our vendors who call out. But this is a good time for vendors and for market managers if you're doing kind of spot checks to make sure that your vendors always bring their tent weights. Because I have seen, especially in the rain, but even on a perfectly beautiful sunny day, sometimes you just get that weird wind that blows
Yeah.
through, and I've seen tents fly up into the air on beautiful what
true.
was until that moment a very still day at the market. So the tent weights are good to bring every single time, not just during when it might be raining. And then also check the canvas on your canopies, which we like to have. Don't bring those canopies with rips and tears in the in the
or one
canvas.
leg is broken.
Yeah,
or-
it's already held together with super
tape.
glue and duct tape and twist ties. You want to make sure that your tent is in working order because a canvas canopy will keep a lot of rain out of your booth, but not if it has a hole in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as someone who drove a convertible with a hole in the canvas for a long time, I can tell you it doesn't keep the rain out.
Yeah, those holes create bad things.
Yeah, so just do
Wet
some
heads.
checks, get ahead of it. Don't be unprepared on those wet days is really the point. And make sure that your vendors are clear on your policy so that they are prepared. And if inclement weather is maybe forecasted, they can just get their rainy day setup ready. So whether or not it rains, if it's forecasted and it doesn't rain, okay, great. Well, you were prepared. But if it's forecasted to rain and then it does rain, great. You're going to have a much better day than if you came to the market not prepared for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll spend too much time talking about snow and extremely cold weather just because it seems weird.
Well,
Because it's very hot in our
we'll circle
podcast
back.
room right
we'll
now.
circle back to that.
Our podcast
in
studio
6
is hot.
months.
We'll come back to that.
But we will
later.
just say that
But
people do it.
they do it. In fact, it's funny. It was funny. We were kind of surprised to see the Portland, Oregon market close for the heat because we have seen them operate with feet of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the part that they're prepared for. They understand that. They know how to deal with it. What we were saying about, people in different parts of the country are used to heat, or people in different parts of the country are used to snow and cold weather, and they just, those folks seem hardier. I feel like they're more prepared in some ways
for life.
than some of us are. Yeah, for life.
Well, it's like I can't wait for a rainy. I don't think Maddie's been managing during a rainy market, but she has her own markets now she's managing, and I'm just can't imagine the calls she might get when it's raining from vendors and how she's going to laugh at them.
Yeah, she's going to laugh at them. Absolutely. Yeah, but the snow and extremely cold weather, a lot of times markets will have some contingency plan where they've got a covered area for some of their vendors.
Yeah.
Heaters and tents. People come up with really clever ways to stay warm in tents. I think we've talked about that before in the
the
colder
cayenne pepper
season.
in the shoes.
Exactly.
And then what we're dealing with now, not just weather. So when you're calling a market for heat, doesn't happen too often, but it's happening recently. But what's gotten worse is we've seen markets over the last couple of years called for fire because there's heat going on, and that's putting either the market area itself at risk for fire or more often smoke. So you'll have a fire that's maybe
The air
not right on
quality's
top
really
of your
bad.
market, but the
Ashes.
air quality's gotten really bad. There's ash.
Yep.
Speaking of Portland, I mean, there were years ago we had markets that were dealing with ash from Mount St. Helens because the
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
So
I mean,
the
they had
volcano
really
went off.
bad fires this last summer.
That's
Yeah,
right. They had
exactly.
really tough fires up there this last summer.
well, the
Northern
droughts
California has
are
bad
really
fires.
Yeah, and when you have heavy rain, like more rain than expected, and then really dry heat, all of those things that grew because of the heavy rain dry out and die, and that's just kindling.
Yeah.
So it's all of these fires are really expanding and
Yeah.
just getting worse and worse every year.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I mean,
the world we're living in.
Climate change is a thing, and
Yep.
that gets bad. And again, that goes back to I've heard a lot of rumble lately from people in fire districts that it comes back every year, and it seems to be getting worse year after year. There's a lot of talk now about fire preparedness. So
Yeah, that's smart.
how to deal with your markets and also, of course, your farmland and your homes when fires are on the horizon, which this summer is tough. I mean, it's droughty, it's hot.
Yeah.
We haven't been hit by a really horrible fire yet, but that could be any minute.
But then I always think, I mean, I don't know when they happened last year, but I feel like they happen later in the summer. They happen August, September, October. And so it's like that's
true.
yet to come. So
Yeah.
we just need to keep a real close eye on that and see in whatever part of the country you're in, whatever kind of things happen at the end of the summer because of this extreme heat.
But I think the emergency responders in a lot of areas are really happy to get ahead of that with you.
Yep.
So rather than wait until you're in an emergency situation, if you're not there yet, start now. Start reaching
Yeah.
out to your local fire department and your local emergency systems in your area and ask them for suggestions. At what point should we not encourage people to be outside?
Yeah.
And if there's a disaster, where do we point people?
Yeah.
If you have to actually evacuate somebody in this hurricane situation or a major fire or any kind of natural disaster, it's really smart to have those emergency plans in place long before you need them and before you're under that pressure situation where you're trying to make that call between keeping people in business and keeping them safe. If you've got a set of guidelines that you can refer to with a deep breath and a set of guidelines, you can kind of calm yourself down and make the best decision that you can in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And contacting all those emergency departments when an actual emergency is happening,
Yeah, good luck
you're
with
probably
that.
not get as much information as you need. So get it ahead of time. They really are great to talk to. And I know we've talked to like the emergency preparedness group here. We've talked to them about like earthquake preparedness and things like that and fires, air quality since we run an outdoor business. Like when is it not safe outside? What agency should you look to get that information? I mean, you don't want to just flip on any news channel. You want to know
gosh,
where to
don't
go.
do that.
Don't do that, or your market will stay closed forever. But yeah, who are you looking to? Like, where are you getting this information from so you can make the best decision? Because, like we said earlier, like a lot of people are counting on you to, help them make the best choice. And market managers kind of end up being kind of the mother hen for everybody, and they're going to be freaked out, and you want to kind of be in a position where you have information and you can make a good choice.
Yeah,
give
and
comfort.
additionally, just be in contact with your farmers and vendors. Here in San Diego, we have a lot of vendors that are traveling from a different climate, right?
Yeah.
We have
Inland
farmers
and
that are
things, yeah.
inland or, from the desert or
Or up north,
different
yeah.
areas. So it may not be impacting our actual farmers market location, but it may be impacting a farmer that's driving from, 50 or 60 miles away or even farther. So you want to, if there is a situation happening kind of in your general area, even if your market is fine, you might have a vendor that's like, hey, look, it's really, I have to be here on my farm, make sure that I can
In case the fire
evacuate.
jumps.
Yeah, exactly.
In case I
So
need to get livestock out. And that's
Yeah.
true not just here, that's true all over. The Union City Green Market, I was just listening to some history on them, and they they bring farmers in from 8 states. Okay, there's littler states back there,
Wow.
but than it is out here in the West. But that's a big area, and so they would have to watch what's going on in Connecticut. How is Rhode Island doing? Are there flood issues kind of outside our state entirely?
Yeah.
But we have farmers coming in from there, so you really got to watch your whole area. And point taken, Justine, that sometimes our farmers in particular are dealing with situations back at the farm, back at their homes that. It's not touching our urban area, but we had a farmer last year, was it our date farmer, that they said, we've got to leave. We have to go home. There's a mudslide that our neighbors just told us about coming down. It may or may not take out our house. We need to be there at least to remove our animals and to, try and grab some belongings.
Exactly. Or like if their families are at home while they're working the market, that's too far to be away from your family when there's a natural disaster happening at your home. So some of your, that he drove like 2.5 hours to the market. So it's like you can't just wait till the end of the market to see what's going on at home. Sometimes you got to be prepared. And what is your policy on people packing up and leaving if they need to, if there's an emergency in the middle of the day for a farmer who's having, a fire or mudslide or storm happening at their farm? So again, think about that ahead of time. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
No matter what farmer's market you're operating, something like that is going to happen. So, just have that plan in place so you know what to say and you don't have to make that on-the-spot decision.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, which seems very trivial compared to protecting your family and your livestock from mudslides, but it's been kind of a conversation lately in our private group on Facebook with other market operators and vendors, is if you do need to cancel a market, what do you do about vendor fees? Do you still charge the vendors for that market?
Yeah.
And there's good arguments for both sides of that.
Yeah.
So again, we've only canceled. And we don't typically cancel a market before it happens. That's only happened once. And it was so embarrassing to me because I canceled it on the threat of torrential rain, and then it was a beautiful sunny day.
That was like 6 months before I moved here to work the markets with you, Kat. So that was like 11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm still traumatized.
And but it helps.
It's like a super villain origin story. That's why Kat is the way she is, because of this one day.
Kat has this reputation of just like never ever closing, and I'm like, because of the market that never was. Like it's a myth. It's like a legend.
She's still looking for revenge.
People are so unhappy. They showed up and we were closed for rain. It was just a beautiful day. So we almost never. We've only once canceled a market before it happened, but we've closed 3 markets after they've been open when the weather just took a turn from uncomfortable to dangerous. Yeah,
and rivers run through it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to go.
And in that situation, we have one time we discounted. We offered to waive the rent, and actually some of the farmers said, you know what, I had really good sales the first 2 hours. I'm okay. So we discounted the rent. We've waived rent a couple of times when the conditions were just so horrible that, God bless you, you showed up, but it's we're going to have to go home now.
Yeah.
We have waived it. But we've also heard from market managers who've said, well, I've still got to pay my staff for being there. I'm still paying for my venue. I still have to pay my insurance for that day. Even if there's not a market, we all kind of have to share that loss.
Yeah.
So it's a really tough call. I can hear where they're coming from on that, and I certainly understand it because we've got a lot of fixed expenses ourselves with our markets. But that's one of those things where it's probably a really good idea to have that policy written down somewhere so you just refer to it and you stick to it and you don't have to make that heartbreaking call about what you're going to do with your vendors that day. And then at the same time, you can memorialize all kinds of things, you can structure all kinds of things, but sometimes you just have to lead with your heart and decide what feels like the fair thing to do.
Yeah.
Follow that farmer's market manager gut decision.
That's right.
Trust
Exactly.
yourself and just go for it. But you could do something like maybe, I don't know, depending on how your market's set up, maybe you have an emergency fund that's like, if we have to cancel the market, this is where the money to pay for the staff goes. And if you don't have to use that, you can throw a vendor party or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yes.
for
Try
sure.
to structure it some way and be prepared so you're not stuck with losses.
Yeah.
And so your farmers and vendors feel like it's fair, so they still want to continue at a market that has a policy like that. But just kind of being consistent is really key. I think if one day you cancel it and then the next day you don't and the weather is similar both days, your vendors are going to get really annoyed with that. Yeah.
I mean, that's what one of the frightening things about making those calls is developing that slippery slope.
Yep.
You know, I actually have seen market managers and honestly, this doesn't seem like a bad system to me, where the people that show up during a rainy day don't get charged, but the people that have the rain flu, they get charged double. And in fact, there's one manager. There's
Sounds like a cat rule to me.
I didn't even make it up. I've never used it, but there's one manager I know of where if you don't show up at a market for weather, you have to pay every vendor that showed up.
Okay, I like that rule because that's true. I feel like when you don't show up,
and the other vendors are doing the job of keeping that market
Being
alive,
consistent.
maintaining the customer's trust for you,
Yes.
and you're going to waltz back in and take advantage of that on the next sunny day. I kind of love that
I
rule.
like
You're
that. It's
sipping
kind of
hot
like
cocoa in
it's
your
like
bed.
kind of like a cursing jar or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You got a swear jar for the market.
Yeah.
That's right. I like
Or
it.
rain flu jar.
Yeah.
All right.
Great ideas.
Kind of drives home the point that this market is a market as a whole. It's just like when people call out for whatever reason and they say, well, I'll pay you the fee. It's not about the fee. It's about being here.
Yeah.
We all have to be here and keep operating. We all have to build that trust with shoppers. So showing up on rainy days is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Part of the deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Good ideas.
All right.
All right, thanks for listening today. And big thanks to Campbell Risk Insurance for protecting farmers, vendors, and market operators, and for their support of Tent Talk, Farmers Market Podcast. Find more information on Campbell Risk by clicking their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Farmers markets are all about connection, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Join us at the 6th Annual Intense the Farmers Market Conference in San Diego, California on March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2022 to grow your market and your community. Connect over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros community, with active farmers market managers and participants. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. To further your farmers market education, check out our online courses at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks so much for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review wherever you access your podcasts, and be sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market Podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week. Tune in.